everyone, I'm Jennifer, the host of Ikigai with Jennifer Shinkai, where we're going to talk about the Japanese concept of Ikigai, or living a life of purpose. Here you're going to hear inspirational stories from all different types of people who are finding their own life of purpose. You're going to hear about how they found their Ikigai and what they do every day to live an integrated life. So without further ado, let's dive right in. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome wherever you are tuning in today to Ikigai with Jennifer Shinkai. And we are delighted to welcome back to the show the wonderful Nicholas Kemp, using your full name today. Nick is, let me hang on, I've scrolled down too far in my notes and I've lost his overview, but he is, I think he says, a husband, a father, not mine, a Japanologist, a researcher. I'm doing so well. I feel like I haven't recorded for a while, but he's laughing, so it's good. A solopreneur and author, most importantly, of Ikigai-Kan, Feel a Life Worth Living, as you can see here. And he's the founder and head coach of Ikigai Tribe, which is a community of educators, psychologists, coaches, and trainers who are serving their personal communities all around the world using the Ikigai concept. So yes, as you saw, well, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see me sharing the book prop here as a prop, lovely. And I've read some, but not all of it, being fully honest with you there. But last time Nick was on in December 2021, it's episode 18 of season 1. He was saying, I'm writing this book, it's nearly ready. And now here it is in the world. So congratulations, Nick, and welcome back.
Thank you so much for having me back on and celebrating the book with me. It's a real joy, and it's sort of hard to believe. It's so weird to say, oh, I'm an author. I'm self-published, so let's get that straight. But yeah, it's a real joy to be on your show to discuss Ikigai and writing and all other wonderful things.
Well, before we get into several topics which we were talking about in the planning, maybe you can just explain to people what Ikigai-Kan is as opposed to Ikigai, first of all.
Okay. So this is sort of two things. It's a acknowledgement of Kamiya Mieko, who I like to think of as the mother of Ikigai, and she was this pioneering researcher who wrote this incredible book, Ikigai ni Tsuite, it was published in 1966. I think it took her 7 years to complete it. And she defined Ikigai as you have sources of Ikigai, which could be relationships, experiences, memories, things you look forward to. And then you have Ikigai-Kan, which is feeling. So Kan means feeling, emotion, perception, awareness. So it highlights the fact that Ikigai is something we feel. It's not something we chase or earn or achieve. And that was this epiphany for me when I read that. It's like, oh yeah, Ikigai it's feeling that life is worth living. It's that zest, it's that intimacy, it's all those wonderful feelings that make you think, damn, it's good to be alive. So yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why I went with Kan, and that's also as you'd know, the kanji on the cover, yeah, which is this kind of dynamic but beautiful, well-balanced kanji. It's one of those really hard ones to explain, but we both know at the bottom is kokoro or shin, which means, mind, heart, spirit sort of combined as one. So yeah, it's fascinating when you look at the kanji and then this definition of Mieko Kamiya. Yeah, so that's why I named it Ikigai-Kan.
Wonderful. So great celebration of Kamiya-san's research and writings, as well as focusing on that idea of the feeling of it, the lived experience of Ikigai, which I think is so important and so expansive. And one thing, so many things I felt reading your book, but one thing that I loved as the message and the story was about the expansiveness, and we'll get onto that in a moment. But I also wanted to just let you know, when I was reading the early chapters around Kamiya-san, I was so moved. And reading it as a feminist, I was like, wow, how hemmed in she was by the societal restraints, what was expected of her. And it just made me think that there are maybe many people who, for whatever reason, can't necessarily pursue, especially the hatarakigai part, like the worth that's hard to say, work worth doing.
Yeah.
There we go. Say that 10 times and fast. No thanks, I can't even say it once. People who aren't able to necessarily explore that in the way that they imagine that they want to, but still she has found a way. And I thought it was fascinating what you shared of her writings on that. So I just wanted to say thank you for bringing light to that. I hadn't ever thought about her experience in that way before. So it really made me quite emotional, actually, when I was reading it.
Well, thank you. I mean, it got me thinking, and I touched on this in the book when we talk about philosophy or psychology or even positive psychology. We constantly hear this phrase, the fathers of, the father of positive psychology, and women just don't get recognized. And I just thought, here you have this amazing woman who was incredibly successful, both as a doctor, a researcher. She became a professor. She tutored Princess Michiko, the former Empress of Japan. She was even a interpreter during the Tokyo War Crimes trial.
Wow.
So she has the most incredible CV. Yet, even for her, all those achievements wasn't her Ikigai. Her Ikigai was writing, and she pursued that much later in her life. And I'm wondering how many other possible, Miyako Kamiyas are out there in Japan and all these other countries that we'll never get to know about because we just don't hear about them. And I think we've got to recognize the contribution women make. And it also makes me think, imagine how many potential Kamiya Miyakos there were, and they just never got a chance because you've got to stay in the home. And as that horrible Japanese kanji of kanai, which is woman in the house, meaning wife, just made me think, wow, what a loss, what a potential loss of wisdom and perspective and insight we'll never get to read about.
It's reminded me, I'll have to find the link to put in the show notes later, but I read a story about a woman who was looking for something on Wikipedia about a specific scientist and realized that this female scientist's work was not on Wikipedia. And she's now gone and created like over 1,700 Wikipedia entries for unrecognized female scientists. There's a story about her that I shared this week. I was like, wow, that's an amazing experience. So, just people who, if you're noticing and being aware of and like raising the profile of these talents, or whoever underrepresented they are in whatever environment we're in, it doesn't have to just be women. It's a great thing to do, to allow people to stretch and to have their impact in the world as well. So but this isn't the main thing I want to talk about, but I wanted to raise it before I forgot. What I really wanted to get into was what you learned about your own Ikigai and your experience of it through writing the book and through, bringing the book into the world, making it a living thing, making it ikiteiru.
Yes. This is funny because even today I said to a friend in the States, we were on Zoom, I said, I actually hate writing. I just have so much negativity associated to it that's just so ingrained from struggling with English and grammar and spelling at school. And I think I realized today I'm still choosing to hate writing when I could actually like it. And now I think I do like writing, but the book taught me to embrace my limitations, and I felt very limited with my writing. And I thought, I really care about this subject of Ikigai, so I've got to be willing to embrace my limitations, get help, and if I can express my values through my writing, so being diligent, being honest, being respectful to the concept, and also being, I guess, in a way, intimate. Yeah, it should be okay, and I'll get through it. Even though there were some days I thought, I'll never get through this this book. And I think I shared with you, and I write this in the book, that one day I vented my frustrations to my wife. I'm saying, "Oh, this book's driving me nuts. I just can't seem to string a sentence together." And she sort of casually, matter of factly said, "Well, you are doing the one thing you're most terrible at." I was like, okay, well, that actually is true. But yeah, it taught me to understand that Ikigai it's not always going to be something that's, blissful or enjoyable. It's going to be something that helps you grow. It's something you might have to, in a way, kind of fight for or push yourself for. Because if you do care about something and it does motivate you to live, and it does almost encourage you to self-actualize, it won't always be easy. So I think I learned that from the book. Like, writing is not my Ikigai, but writing about Ikigai became my Ikigai. And yeah, it was a year investment, and I had to embrace this idea of limitations. I will need help. And I got help from an amazing person, someone who was in my first cohort of Ikigai Tribe, Dr. Caitlin Kite, who happened to be a technical editor. And she was the best editor I could have ever wished for. So I was extremely lucky to have her supporting me. And that was very intimate. You're writing all these very personal thoughts and ideas, and you're sharing it with one person first. You're thinking, oh, is this strange, or am I going too deep here? And I got very constructive, positive feedback. She would challenge me on things. She would encourage me on things. And sometimes I would push back, and then she'd write, "Yeah, I'm glad you pushed back on this point because you needed to." Yeah. So that was it. I think I was self-actualizing by writing this book to some degree.
Now, I have so many questions, as always. Tell me a little bit more about what self-actualizing means for you.
Well, that is a wonderful question. I think it's a combination of being true to your values, using your unique imagination to express yourself. And I guess I'm stealing from Kamiya Sensei here to create something new. And so, I mean, many people can write a book, but no one will ever write the same book that I've written. Yeah. And that is a contribution. And they're my thoughts and words for the most part. And yeah, you really have to go deep and almost have this heart-to-heart conversation with yourself. And some people might interpret that to be, you're opening yourself up to vulnerability, but that's probably, I'd like to frame it as releasing yourself, as Ken Moggy does. So I think that's what self-actualization is. You're using your unique imagination to express yourself, and in the process, you create something new, and it's your contribution to your community or to the world, or to someone else.
That's really beautiful, Nick. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I love that perspective. And thinking about the idea, you quoted Kobayashi Tsukasa right at the end of the book as well. And his quote, and I'm going to find it, page 161, because I wrote it down.
I quote a
about
lot of people. So.
self-realization. Here it is. I've got it. Real Ikigai is more than that. This was like talking about like playing gate ball or writing haiku or work or something. People can feel real Ikigai only when, on the basis of personal maturity, the satisfaction of various desires, love and happiness, encounters with others, and a sense of value of life, they proceed towards self-realization. I thought that was great.
Yeah, well, that kind of makes it quite serious, though, doesn't it? In a way, it becomes very heavy. So, and as you know, I present this idea that someone like Ken will say, Ikigai is everywhere. It's in your morning cup of coffee. It's in your daily run. Or you have someone like Kobayashi saying, no, that's a sobi guy. And, your work's your hataraki guy. Ikigai is, yes, it's really getting at the core of who you are. And you can only get to the core of who you are after you go through those things of, love and growth. So I don't know what the answer is. I think it's sort of this spectrum, but with that core idea of getting to know who you are and self-actualizing. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's interesting to talk about that idea of self-actualization, self-realization as this journey. And one thing I wanted to talk about with you, so, along the journey, so you accepted, you embraced your limitations. It wasn't easy. So I think it's good to just alert people that pursuing these feelings of, the Ikigai-Kan might not always be sweetness and light, and every single moment of it, because it has that element of growth and like coming up against edges of yourself and overcoming them. But this idea as well that, on the journey, do we reach it? But you've definitely achieved a milestone. And one thing which has happened with me when I feel like I've been working towards a goal, I've kind of got there. And I thought there would be, the pot of gold, literal or otherwise, or just some kind of sense of, amazement or achievement. And often it felt quite flat. Not what I expected. And maybe the key word is in expectation. So I wanted to hear a little bit from you about, from when we spoke last year and now that your book is out in the world, how has hitting that milestone of publishing, impacted where you are on your Ikigai journey?
It's been very positive. Like you said, I certainly didn't have any sort of elation or there certainly wasn't a pot of gold that's appeared on my doorstep or anything. I think I was very aware that once I wrote the book, that would mean now, I'm going to have to market the book and sell it. And because I have that background in marketing, I thought, well, it's not going to end there. But I had this sense of relief and almost, no regret. Like there's no sense like, oh, I should have written more on this or I should have done that. And even when we got the first 50 copies published, there was a ton of typos in them all. And I just thought, oh, well, what do you expect? That's going to happen with me. But getting it all out was this relief. And I was very kind of, there was this happiness, like, oh, you did it, man. You did the one thing, you're not really good at. And well done, like good for you kind of attitude. And I've never really had that self-talk before. I'm pretty critical of myself. You're a loser and you're stuffed up again kind of self-talk is quite common for me. So the book was this relief and something I could sort of celebrate within myself. And I didn't have to have a book launch party, or it was just like, oh, I did it. Awesome. Now I can sell it. And I guess if I felt something was wrong with the book, I wouldn't be talking to you today, because I'd be thinking, oh, I've got to fix this, or I'm not ready yet. So it is that acceptance of yourself and what I've expressed in the book. And who knows? There'll be people who will this is what Ken Moggy said to me one day. He said, Nick, there'll be someone listening to your podcast, and same for you,
Yeah.
who will really get something out of it. And they'll just never take the time to thank you because, we're busy in life and we're doing all these things. And so that might be the same for the book, that it might impact someone. And even though they might not let me know, that doesn't really matter, as long as it helps someone and it gives them a chance to reflect on life, or even if they kind of disagree with some aspects of the book, and it encourages them to think a little bit differently. Yeah, you've had some contribution. So yeah, it's sort of the first piece of writing I'm really comfortable with. So
That's
there's this
great.
relief, like, I did it. So yeah.
And I love that it's given you that sense of pride as well,
Mm.
and change some of the self-talk that you have around something that you thought was a limitation, and you've been able to overcome that in an astounding way, right? To write some blog posts is quite different to writing a book, and to stick with it and get through those hard times and to find the right support. It's great that it's had that internal impact on you, that you've gone, wow, yeah, this was something worth doing for
Mm.
myself. And I think we'd also talked when we were planning this episode, um, not only about, I love what Mogi Sensei has shared with you about people might not always have time to thank you. So that's a
Mm.
great reminder for everyone when we like put work out into the world. Not everyone's going to tell you what it meant to them, but that doesn't
No.
mean it meant nothing. But obviously, the interwebs. So sometimes people really enjoy spending time to tell you how it didn't connect with them. And so you wrote a really intriguing comment actually in the notes, and I was asking you about like integrating Ikigai, and you said it might be challenged by others. And we talked
Ah.
about like not getting too attached to people's reactions as well. So I wonder if you could just talk to those points, because it had intrigued me.
I mean, this is really important, because if something gives your life meaning,
Mm,
whether that's a hobby, a potential career path, a person that you fall in love with, and there are other people in your life who don't accept that, in a way, they are threatening your ikigai. So it is something you might have to, in a way, fight for. And I think it goes back to this idea of you're trying to live your values,
mm,
and you've almost got two options. You compromise, and you decide, oh, all right, well, I'll compromise for these people, whether they're my parents or friends or my employer, or you don't. And then you might have to make a very hard decision. You might have to have some conflict with someone, or leave a job, or end a relationship. So I think, yeah, when you're challenged by people who test your ikigai sources, these
mm,
things that give you ikigai, it's almost a value challenge. And I think a lot of people tragically live life in conflict with their values every day. They're in a
mm,
relationship they shouldn't be. They're doing a job they honestly don't like. They dread today. They dread Monday. Or
mm.
they dread it so much they don't even dread Sunday. They actually dread Saturday night, because they know they're going to be thinking about how much they hate Sunday, because they know they have to go to work the next day. So
Wow, to see them coming, yes, the Sunday night. Sazai-san
yeah,
syndrome is
so
well known in Japan, but is the TV show uh, comic comic? No, what am I saying? Cartoon, which is raised every Sunday night, and there's a Sazai-san syndrome of people start to go, oh, Sazai-san's been on, which means it's Sunday night at whatever clock. I
yeah,
can't remember, 6 or 5:30. So therefore, yeah, tomorrow I've got
yeah.
to go and live in conflict with my values. Yeah.
And that's a tragedy. So I'm not sure if I answered the question, but yeah, it matters because you're not living the life you want, and that means you're living in conflict with your values. And sometimes it goes so deep you forget what your values are, your personal, intimate, Ken Moggy says your sentimental values. You've lost them, and don't let someone do that to you. Is probably my message. And just maintain your Ikigai, or fight for your Ikigai in a respectful, pragmatic, thoughtful way. Yeah, so it's kind of weird to say, but that's what I honestly think. And people will be critical of your Ikigai, and because people tend to be critical of everything.
There's that self-talk coming up.
Yeah,
But no, I think it's really valuable, because often a lot of people that I'm working with, and I'm sure for yourself too, and guests that I've had on the podcast, what it has meant to them to, as you said, fill up your life with as many different sources or as much Ikigai as you want, has sometimes meant bucking the trend or changing something about how they show up in the world, whether that's emotionally, spiritually, or like physically in terms of the things that they're doing every day. And one of my coaches, Jim Fortin, talks about, when you're changing, when you're transforming, the reason people fight against it is you've just sort of broken their mode of reality. And it might be like, oh, Nick has taken up, calligraphy. Oh, okay, I'm fine with that. But Nick has suddenly turned our living room into a calligraphy studio, and I don't have anywhere to sit. Not so good with that. And then, of course, there's more serious ways that people are doing that. And, things like someone was talking about one partner like decides, I'm going to transform my health. I'm going to change how I eat, how I move. And the other partner's like, no, even though it's the right thing for both of them, they don't want to go on that journey for themselves. And they also don't want their partner to go on that journey too. So I think what you're saying about like fighting for it's sort of, it's a bit depressing, a bit dark, but also like brutally honest and important to know.
I was reading this book,
which says Ikigai Counseling, for those of you who are listening on the podcast.
And it's by a man called Ichiro Tsuruta, and it's only in Japanese. And within the introduction, he quotes, or he says, I've studied the work of Miyako Kamiya, and he quotes from her book. And he says, or in the quote is, there's nothing more necessary for humans to live a vibrant life than Ikigai. And that's me translating it. And I thought, wow, that is true. It's not just life, it's the vibrant life. It's the life you wish to have. And you've got to find your Ikigai. And if you are one of these people that, perhaps the people around you and you feel that, oh, they've got their Ikigai, embrace that, support the Ikigai of others, and then try and find your own, rather than trying to stop someone explore their Ikigai, even if it seems bizarre or odd. Because we want to embrace that idea of supporting the Ikigai of others rather than, blocking.
Yeah. Well, if I can't have Ikigai, neither can you. We don't want to have that one. No, that's not the vibe we're bringing into the world. So let's say I'm in the situation, or one of our listeners is going, oh, yes, Nick, I'm hearing it all, but what I want, how do I find it? Like, what are some of the top tips? I know top tips even, and I know you don't love a hack, but if you can hack Ikigai for someone, like what they can do tomorrow, what's the one thing you'd recommend?
Yes, so this goes to the idea it's there. You just need to uncover it. And
Mm,
so one way is to go back to probably not your childhood, but maybe your teenage years or early adult years, if you're not a young adult, and go back to the hobbies you pursued, the things that gave you that zest for life, or the things you thought about doing that you never got around to trying. So there's plenty of things. And then if you're really saying, oh, there's nothing, learn something, learn
mm,
something new, start something. And that's from that psychometric tool, the Ikigai-9.
yeah.
Start something new or learn something, because that's learning, and that leads to growth, and that leads to self-exploration and eventually self-expression. Or connect with an old friend. I think we talked about that last time. Call an
Mm,
old friend, help an old friend, because Ikigai is also very much tied to your social world. And so there's a friend you could probably call today and say, hey, been a long time. How you going? What's news? Remember that time we, broke into a train station?
hang on, let's get into this story. When did you break into a train station? Apparently, allegedly, officer.
No.
Can't
I
prove it
never
was
did
me.
that.
It was an oddly prescient, like very strong. Prescient's not the word I'm looking for. Very strong memory there.
Mm,
Specific, specific breaking into a train station activity. So
mm,
we've got um, first is so go back to your teenage or young adult years, and I was grinning as you said that, because the pictures behind me coming back to art, that was something I spent so much time. I was every morning before school, lunchtime, sometimes after school, in the art studio. We had this amazing teacher, Mrs. Nelson. And like that was just the time I would be in flow. I was also always learning. And so coming back to that in lockdown, and then now I've got, this burgeoning illustration practice and
there you
doing
go.
art every day. Yeah, like it's a great tip, I could say, from my lived experience, finding those things. Or I love those things that you never quite pursued
Mm,
as well, and you always thought it would be cool to, but for whatever reason, access wasn't possible for you at that time. I think that's a great hint too. um Learning something, anything.
learning. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're in such an information rich environment. I'm thinking we had the great guest previously. So we had Jessica Garrity, who talked about her Kudo practice, which like took her a while to get into, from first becoming knowledgeable of Kudo, and then I think it was a 7-year gap before she actually got to a dojo. And then
Oh, wow.
also
Okay.
Justin Saunders. Oh no, I forgot my guest name. That's terrible. But he talks about education, like continuing education, when he was head at Temple University, and one of their students is like this guy in his 90s. And he takes a course, every semester, something different. Now he's learning Chinese or whatever. So just having that, this is the information rich environment, right? You
Mm.
can find courses anywhere, everywhere. If you're listening to this podcast, you've got access to the internet. So yeah.
And I mean, yeah, we are lucky and privileged to be living in this time. We can almost learn anything for free, or for, very cheap to learn something now.
Mm,
It's less than $100. You can probably get enough information is probably better in quality and content than, some university courses.
yeah.
So one other thing is developing a new healthy habit. And I go walking every day, and there is some
Mm,
sort of switch or turning point where your body craves it, and your just body says, get up and let's do it. Let's go on this walk. I have this beautiful park land area that once I sort of enter into, it almost feels like I'm in a national park.
oh wow.
And I have found this kookaburra, this Australian bird,
Yes.
that I get to meet at a peak, depending on the time, almost every morning. And he
Is he sitting on the old gum tree? Merry, merry king of the bush, is he? That's all I know
he
about a
often
kookaburra.
is. And I thought, wow, I saw you yesterday.
Hey, buddy.
And I often don't take my phone because I really want to switch off.
Yeah.
But I got these amazing photos of him. I know our audience listening won't see them,
Yes.
but
You could
check,
share them, and then we
yeah,
can put them in the socials for this.
that
Oh,
out.
hello.
And
Nice to
he's
meet
like a
you.
little, just
Oh,
in my imagination,
yeah.
he's sort of a little friend. But you have this opportunity to see the beauty of the world and experience small self. Like you go into what feels like a national park and you see and hear these sounds of nature, the birds tweeting and the breeze or the wind and the light coming through the leaves, and this sensory experience is very pleasurable. And you can breathe and walk slowly and take it all in, and you notice these beautiful flowers or just all these things that you don't allow yourself to enjoy because you're running around like a crazy person trying to get all these things done. So if you have a new habit that centers you and grounds you, and you stick to it for about a couple of weeks, your body will crave it, and that'll become another Ikigai source. You'll want to do that. And I didn't do that this morning, and I'm slightly off. So I usually do it at sort of 6:30,
Yeah.
and I got on a call at 7, so I couldn't do it. And so
You're all a bit
even though I went for a walk,
discombobulated.
yeah, so we should be clear that Ikigai is not the solution. It's not like the be all and end all. It's as Gordon Matthews says, Ikigai is sort of the beginning of the pursuit of a life worth living. So once you found your Ikigai, you want to keep growing, you want to keep learning, you want to keep moving.
Oh, I love that sort of addictive quality of Ikigai. First way to phrase it. Now, you mentioned a very interesting word that might have got lost, but you talked about small self, and you mentioned that in the book. So could you just talk a little bit more about small self and how it relates to Ikigai as well?
Yeah, so small self is the experience of awe, really. So and the best way to do that is to go in nature, and you go into nature and you could see a waterfall or huge trees, or you see nature in play, and you begin to understand, wow, the world's much bigger than this. All this is going on, and I'm a part of it, but I'm just a small but feel an important part of it, because you are alive, you're here and now, so you're part of this world. But yeah, you can witness things, and if you're very careful, you witness amazing things going on, all just all around you, all sort of serendipitously happening. You really don't know how it's all happening. And I think it centers you and makes you realize, oh, there's a lot going on and then just my problems, and it's opened you up to, and this is again touching on Kemp work, the possibility of Henkaku Taiken, which is some sort of transformation. And you often hear people, they go off into nature and they find God, or they have some experience. And maybe it's not that they find God, they allow themselves to experience nature and have this sense of awe and small self. And it inspires change, and it flicks a switch where they go, I want to change my life, or there's a calling, or there's something happens, and your mind opens up, and you gain an understanding, a broader and deeper understanding of the world around you. And in that case, there's nothing to be embarrassed about by being small.
Mm.
It's actually kind of like a form of growth,
Yes,
the
indeed, indeed. Oh,
realization.
good. I'm so glad that we got that explanation, because I think that that feeling of awe and like searching it out. You talked about nature. It made me think. I was thinking, when was the recent time that I felt awe? And for me, I get a lot of feelings of awe and small self, and but maybe it's like the big self of humanity in performance, like watching someone else's performance. So I was lucky enough to go and see Lady Gaga when she came to Tokyo, and the music and the costumes and the oneness of the crowd, like
Mm.
40,000 people who had been like cooped up in lockdown for 2 years. And yes, they were being told, keep your masks on and don't shout, but most people kept their masks on, but we were all screaming and dancing, and just being like, look at this artist and look at all these amazing dancers, and all the people. I'm getting like goosebumps talking about it.
Goosebumps, yeah.
Yeah, so I think anything that can inspire goosebumps is worth seeking out. But then on like another totally different scale, there's a gentleman near my house at the moment, and we have an expo happening till the end of the month in Sumidoku in Kyojima. And every day this month at 6 o'clock, he goes out on the second floor of his nagaya. It's like an old terraced house, I guess is the translation of a nagaya, like long terraced house. Anyway, and he plays his violin.
Oh,
And he
beautiful.
sings a little song, and he says, it's a 6 o'clock oshirase, it's a 6 o'clock announcement. Hope you had a good day. Hope you had fun. And yeah, just a really beautiful moment. That, yes, it's got tanoshimi as well, which you talk about in the book, like the idea of looking forward to it. It's got that idea of a habit that he's doing, but even being, as you said, like supporting others' ikigai, turning up for him
Beautiful.
and saying, this matters to me, so thank you for doing it. I think is really yeah, it's just a beautiful moment that makes me feel both small and connected as well.
Well, I think it's another way we could understand it is you're witnessing flow. So you're witnessing the flow of that man playing the violin, or Lady Gaga's concert, and that would be like a collective flow with her and her band and the other musicians, but also the sorry,
I forgot to mention the band. I was so focused on the
band,
the dancers,
the band, but also the audience. And yeah, I write about that idea of captured flow, like the calligraphy behind me. If someone came in the room and looked at this calligraphy, it would probably change their state or would capture their attention, and they'd feel something. And that's, there's something about art or music or nature that connects with us, and it's very hard to describe, but we gain a sense of comfort and peace and almost like a knowingness, like, oh, I'm going back to the source, or I feel connected. And it's very comforting for you probably to hear that violin, and it's very emotional. So it's the small self is this emotional, awe experience, and we should embrace that and try and experience that every day.
A great thing to be looking out for in our daily busy lives. So if you have a final message, Nick, you'd like to share for listeners of Ikigai with Jennifer Shinkai, what would it be? What's their next step?
I don't want to come across cheap and say buy my book, but
well, do buy his book. It's excellent. And leave a 5-star review only, because support other people's ikigais or scroll on. Thanks.
But I guess what I would say is I have so many people to thank for this book, and there's a lot of quotes. And one thing I really don't like doing is citations, and I have about 200 citations. So that was hard, doing all those citations. So it is this work that brings together all these different perspectives. And so I write in the book that I'm peering over the shoulders of these humble giants who have done years of research on Ikigai and other relatable concepts. And so it's certainly a work that, tries to be, respectful and honest, and includes the work of many other people, because, my life experience on Ikigai is quite limited. And so that was also, probably one of the reasons why it was an Ikigai for me, was to bring this collective knowledge together as a way of saying thank you to people who've been on my podcast, or, recognizing people who are no longer with us, like Kemi and Miko. So, so it's a collective kind of work, and I just pieced it together and shared a few stories.
Just a year
Very
and
easy,
something a year and something of work for someone who hates writing. Brilliant.
Yes.
Just threw it together over lunchtime.
Just put it together over the weekend.
Yeah. Maybe that was the initial thought, what it would be, but these projects take on a mind of their own. So yes, of course, we can buy your book. We'll have links in the show notes. Also your Ikigai tribe, so people can connect if they want to start bringing some different Ikigai practices into their work, right? Yeah.
Yes. If you're interested in either learning the concept a bit more, or if you are transitioning maybe to coaching or anything like that, or you're an educator and you think helping the others feel their Ikigai would be of benefit, please reach out to me through Ikigai Tribe. And I actually do have a book website, so it is Ikigai-Kan.com. So that's where you can go. And I have put together a journal, actually, a journal. So the back cover of the book, that is the front. Essentially, that's the front cover of the book, and that's touching on the 8 Ikigai needs. Kamiya presented 7 Ikigai needs in a book, and then for some reason she wrote on purpose separately. So I do see a sense of purpose as being the sort of the 8th need, and maybe in today's world it has become a need. We write or talk about desiring this sense of purpose, and a unmet need is essentially a desire. So I decided to call it her 8th need. so that companion
with an
book,
asterisk. With an asterisk,
with an
applied.
asterisk.
Not her official naming, but
so there's also that, and that was a lot easier to put together. That actually only took a weekend. Because it's a journal.
The diagrammatic is there, and the journal is there to support like going deeper in the topics. Well, unfortunately, we are coming to the end of our time together, but I'm so happy to have you back on as a guest and to see that you have had this brilliant launch and amazing book out there, and you're still podcasting, right? So people can still catch up with you.
I've got one coming out this week. So
there you go.
And this is actually a good one to end with. This term, rollfulness. So
rollfulness.
So intriguing.
Links in the show notes. Find out what that means. I'm intrigued to dive into it, but we'll save that with just a little teaser. You can listen to the Ikigai Tribe podcast with Nick. Thank you. Over on his channels too. So thank you so much. We wish you the best of luck with your book, and hopefully you'll come back another time to let us know what's going on with your Ikigai journey as it continues to grow and to change. One thing I think is really fascinating with my guests, I'm meeting them when they're at a certain point in their life, and then to come back in and you remember the thing that I talked about I was going to do? I've done it now. And then this is what's happening for me. So here's to your continued growth and feeling Ikigai every day.
Well, thank you for having me on again. It's a real joy. And I'm going to be asking you something after we stop recording. So
all right then. Well, another teaser, not previously on, but next week on. Let's find out what happens to that. And it's been great to chat to you, Nick. Thank you, everyone who's
Likewise.
listening to the end. And yes, please grab your copy of Ikigai-Kan by Nicholas Kemp. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you so
much,
much.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.